Alrighty. Been a while since you guys seen this one out, huh? So anyway, today we're working on the Bibbster. Got all the engine parts back from the machine shop. Gonna pull those out of the truck here in just a second. We're gonna start assembling the engine. Really need to kind of move forward on that, but I've been kind of tinkering with the Goose as well. Got a couple of updates that I want to make. At some point, I really want to finish filling all these little tiny pieces inside the car and maybe make some kind of trim bezel to go down here and tie the carpet in. I also want to finish the back of this thing. So I've actually got like a piece that fits in there, but I want to carpet it all, put all the plastics back in it. One of the things I wanted to do before I did that was get the CO2 bottle mounted. So I've got it all mounted now. I'm just waiting on some stainless hose clamps and that should finish that up. Gonna make a couple of changes under the hood. I want to put new plug wires on it. I think I'm gonna remake the bracket. I want to kind of make something to protect this fuel line in case that belt comes off. I don't want it to cut off or break off that fuel line, and I've seen it happen before. So anyway, some Goose content coming soon, hopefully. I want to put some new lower control arms on this thing as well. I've already got those. I'm gonna have to modify them a little bit, kind of make some adjustable spring perches, but get those put on. Yeah, kind of want to get this thing to the track before the end of the season, which season lasts through November here, so I think I should be good. Enough on the Goose though. Let's get to the Bibbster. All right, so there's the block. Nice and fresh from the machine shop. Let's get this thing pulled out and put on the engine stand. Start putting it together. Balancer, rods, pistons, flywheel, crank, everything's ready to go. Balanced, clearanced, measured. The block itself was cleaned. Had it bored and then had it decked. They checked the mains on it. He clearanced it for a stroker and new cam bearings. So this thing should be good to go. So, forged piston, 40 over, got a little dish to it. Still should make some pretty good compression. Ended up being a 410 stroker, I believe. And then the rods, just a 4340. It's actually a Chevrolet rod. It's got a floating pin setup, so there's the pins. And basically, it's got some lock wires that go inside the pistons, and the rod actually floats on the pin itself versus like a factory style setup. These are heated and the pin itself is pressed in. So you won't have that. The rod will float on the pin will kind of float in the piston, and just allows it a lot more freedom. Block looks pretty good. It's gonna need a lot of cleaning. Get everything nice and cleaned up, and then I'll paint it. It's gonna paint it black. I'm gonna wait though, because it's got a coating on it right now that'll keep it from rusting, and so I'm gonna wait until I'm ready to start kind of wiping everything down. This will probably be a several night process for me. I'm gonna go ahead and start on putting the rods in the pistons, and then yeah, several nights, The thing is with any kind of engine assembly is to take your time, go slow, make sure it's all right, make sure everything is very, very clean. And so that's my game plan. All right, so made some progress on this thing. When I assemble these engines, I like to take my time, go nice and slow. You don't want to make any mistakes. It's not very hard. It's just pretty tedious, filing the rings, getting the rings to file fit, just assembling things, just making sure that you do it the right way. So I got all the rings, file fit. Gaps are good for about 15 pounds of boost, which I think will be plenty. I don't plan on making crazy amounts of boost in this thing. It ought to make pretty good power at 15 pounds, and the car is not going to weigh anything. So, did run into a little snafu though. So typically what I'll do is, as I come across parts that I think I can use in a future build, I'll hang on to them. And this camshaft, which is a nice Lunati billet, 100% billet camshaft, was one of those I thought, you know what, I'll save this for the Bibbster. When I built the Goose, I bought a complete engine assembly that had never been run. It was a brand new setup, and it came with this camshaft. This camshaft is a solid roller setup for boost. The guy that I bought it from was gonna run twin turbos. This camshaft would basically be perfect for the Goose. It's almost the exact same setup, twins. It's a race style setup. And so when I got it, I was like, I don't really wanna run solid lifters on the Goose, mainly because I wanted it to be more street car. I didn't want to be adjusting valve lash all the time and having, valve train issues. A lot of times the solid rollers or any kind of solid cam really is pretty hard on valve train. And so I ordered a custom cut hydraulic roller setup for that because I knew I was going to drive it. I knew I wanted it to be a street car. I didn't want to have to fool with, adjusting lash all the time and maybe possibly breaking some kind of rocker arm or whatever. Which I guess is still possible. But long story short, had another cam cut put in there, put that on the shelf for this particular project. With this one, it's not gonna have a lot of miles. It's not gonna matter that I have to adjust the lash. Really want like the sound of a solid roller in this thing. I really want it to cut up. So I was like, you know what, I'll just hang on to it. It's a nice looking camshaft. And so then I was kind of getting ready to slide it in this block and noticed that the gear that the distributor runs on was wore. I was like, man, what the heck? It does look like it's kind of pressed on there. So I contacted Lunati. I said, hey, how do I get on with these gears? I'll just press off this last load, press a new gear on. And they're like, you can't do that. I was like, well, let me send it to you. I'll just send it to you. You guys can press me on another gear. They're like, no, you need another camshaft. So this thing I've been hanging on to forever is basically paperweight now. But I got to thinking, if I was going to buy another camshaft, I don't know that I would actually want to buy this exact same cut, because they said they could cut this exact same grind for me, or they could grind this same exact cut for me. But this is more for like a race car, and I was going to use it. But I mean, if I got to buy another camshaft, I might as well buy something that's made more specific to the Bibbster. Something that's going to make, you know, potentially more low end torque. It's not built for high RPMs. It's not built for super high boost. Something that's not built for specifically for a turbo setup will sound better as well. Typically on a turbo setup, the camshafts aren't very radical. They don't sound, they don't kind of cut up and make, you know, make noise. They're usually pretty smooth. And because I'm not gonna run a ton of boost in this thing, I could kind of get a camshaft that's more towards motor and then just put a little boost on it. It's not gonna be the most efficient thing, but it'll probably do better low end, sound better, still make power up top. So that's what I did. Just ordered another, I actually went to Comp Cams, ordered one of their off the shelf style camshafts for this thing that I felt like fit pretty good. And then I'll just put some boost on top of that. So it sucks. It sucks when things don't go as planned, especially when it costs you a little extra money. But, I mean, I need to do it. Gotta do something. So, yeah. I think I've got just about everything else, though, set up, ready to go. So, rods and pistons. Like I said, it's a free-floating rod. Pin setup, so the actual rod itself is sliding on that pin versus the pin itself sliding back and forth. So those are all locked in. I've actually got the oil rings on there already, so about ready for those. Obviously the crank's got to go in first. I left all the rings in the block because really when you file fit rings, you want them specific to the cylinders themselves. That way if there's a slight variant in the cylinder size, you're not kind of mixing these up. You know that the gaps are going to stay the same. So I'm going to leave them in there. I'll roll it over. We're going to slide the crank in, get all that done. And then as I install the rods and pistons, I'll actually pull those rings out, put it on the piston I want, and then install that one in the cylinder that it came out of. So got all my bolts, more bolts, distributor shaft, some bearings, pilot bearing, obviously, because this thing is going to be manual. I think this is the distributor I'm going to use. I'm actually modified because I'm doing coil on plug, but I do need a cam sync, so I think I'm just going to cut off all these teeth. Got a bunch of teeth in there. I'm gonna cut them all off but one, and then that will be my basically my marker for the cam sync. Somehow I'll tie it into these wires and hopefully that thing will read. A lot closer than we were. Made some pretty good progress, got everything buttoned up. Kind of a pain in the butt. I had to fight the rings on this thing. I have apparently my ring compressors aren't very good, or I don't know. I just couldn't get the pistons going. I actually had to manually compress each ring as the piston went down so I wouldn't damage anything.
Camshaft should be here Wednesday, so I thought about waiting till I got it to post this video, but I'll just we'll just do another video. Put the cam in, lifters, slide the cylinder heads on. I gotta modify the oil pan. I'm gonna put some drains, some ports for the turbo drain back in that thing. I'll get that done, slide it on. This thing will be ready to go back in the Bibbster. I'm ready, I'm stoked. Get this thing slid in, finish up the wiring, fuel system, and yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't be able to get it fired up. Anyway, as always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys some more this week sometime. Y'all could do work, son.